Welcome back to Tales from the Bargain Bin, where we ask the important questions, like, why? And, what? Last episode, we covered a sexy murder doll that wasn't quite as interesting as it sounds. This week, we get dragged kicking and screaming down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland. What's the matter with Hatter? And don't worry, it's not a Video Brinquedo film. I checked. No, this comes from BKN, a German company that gave us Kong the Animated Series, which is a bizarre show but was made with some semblance of quality, making this all the stranger of a movie. First off, I just want to say that I don't mind the existence of non-Disney fairy tale movies. Technically, Alice in Wonderland isn't a fairy tale, but that's beside the point. If it's in the public domain, everyone gets to take a crack at it, which I fully support. Some just try harder than others to stand on their own. Now that we've finished the intro, let's move on to the intro. We start with a sequence of cards flying through all the locations of the movie. I admit I liked this intro, but after monstrosities like Little Bee, I think I'm just desperate for any amount of creativity. Alice is introduced imagining silly nonsense to her mother's dismay.
Oh, Jabberwock, you silly dog. I'm afraid you'll never catch that butterfly, unless you can sprout wings. A dog with wings. Now wouldn't that be something to see?
Really, Alice, the things you think up. Can't you ever be serious even for a little while?
Ah, yes, the bitchy mom who was very prim and proper. Couldn't do this story without that. I think that was an aspect of the Tim Burton movie too, but I'm not sure why. I just looked through my copy of the book and I don't think Alice's family is spoken of much at all. But it doesn't really matter, I guess. We get the white rabbit, of course, and her dog Jabberwock chases after it. Alice follows them both down the rabbit hole, and during her fall we meet their absolute fucking nightmare version of the Cheshire Cat.
Do you think?
Talking teeth?
Technically speaking, nuh-uh. But a talking Cheshire Cat? Oh yeah, that would be me. I'm a Cheshire Cat. But then, hey, when the mood hits, I can be whatever I feel like.
Okay.
Jesus Christ, I don't know what they were thinking with him. It's like they paid a drunk, schizophrenic hobo to do an impression of Genie. Next is a case of copyright infringement.
Guess I'll have to try them all. But which one?
Do you mind?
Oh, who said that?
I did. So kindly stop squeezing my nose, girlie.
So, fun little detail about the Disney movie, the talking doorknob is the only character that is not from the books. Now, I don't know if they just thought they could get away with it since it's not an American company, or if they hadn't read the books and just assumed he was in them, but this is 100% copyright infringement. But on the other hand, this is Disney we're talking about.
Perhaps we should help.
Skriller!
Please step away from the camera. I'm getting flashbacks to later Doctor Who where Earth was apparently invaded by cameramen with boundary issues. She looks through the keyhole of a tiny door and gets jump scared.
But can you see through me?
The Cheshire Cat.
In the flesh? Well, sort of. Maybe you're expecting a Cheshire elephant instead.
On the other side, she sees her dog, but she's too big to fit through and uses a looking glass to shrink, but leaves the key to the door on the table. She flips it around to grow big, but gets too big and gets all sad about it, crying until she floods the room.
Tell me I did not just do that.
After the flood breaks down the door, she floats down a river and meets some talking flowers. Standard Wonderland stuff.
Very unnatural, if you ask me.
Oh, put a lock in it!
The nerve of that knobby-nosed old coot.
But then we meet the Hatter, who is portrayed as a charming teenager. I'll cut to the chase, Alice clearly wants to fuck him. But the story isn't a romance, so nothing of that sort ever really happens, unless we're assuming Tea Party is a metaphor. What's interesting is that while the Hatter is a main character, the movie isn't about him. He has no noteworthy problems, no discernible backstory, nothing. He's just around. So then, pray tell, why is the subtitle of the movie, What's the Matter with Hatter? I'll tell you what's the matter with him. He's living a life devoid of any semblance of meaning or direction, so he's pretty much just like all of us. Maybe in the sequel he'll take a criminal turn and move to Gotham with the Joker. To go with this meeting is an aimless song about whimsy from some poor sap just trying to pay the bills while the Hatter passes out cookies soaked in hat sweat.
This is just a calling to you. There's so many new things to do.
After it wraps up, the Hatter takes her to the Pink Palace to find the white rabbit that Jabberwock was chasing. They say the palace is different colors at different times of day, but I guess a color swap to demonstrate this wasn't in the budget. Tweedledee and Tweedledum answer the door, and in this version they are moose. Yes, the plural of moose is also moose. I checked. But I guess it's not a problem for the characters. I don't see any reason why they can't be moose.
And who we be you?
And who we be you?
Now stop that, Tweedledee, or I swear.
Now you stop that, Tweedledum, or I double swear.
Hello? Could we please come in?
Well, why didn't you just say so?
The Duchess of Bumblefuck tells everyone that the White Rabbit was arrested by the Queen, but as always with these movies, I am horrified to hear a familiar voice.
I don't care if she's the ace of diamonds. She had no right to arrest my lucky rabbit footman.
The White Rabbit's been arrested?
Isn't that what I just said?
I am 90% sure this is Suzanne Blakesley, the voice of Wanda from Fairly Odd Parents.
So, I guess you'll really need us to help you with Vicky, huh?
And apparently Maleficent in Kingdom Hearts?
I'm afraid you're too late. Any moment now, the final keyhole will be unsealed. This world will be plunged into darkness.
I couldn't find her name in the credits or any mention of this movie in her wiki, but it is common for these kinds of roles to go uncredited. After all, this movie certainly isn't helping anyone's career. The White Rabbit is on trial for supposedly stealing a turnip and tuna tart. To get there in time for the trial and to hopefully prevent an execution, the Hatter pulls wings out of his hat so he and Alice can fly.
I don't know.
You better make up your mind pronto if you want to make it in time for the trial.
But...
Because if he loses his case, he may just lose his head, too.
Oh, that's terrible.
It's pretty cool, actually. But then, without a good head on his shoulders, Carrot Red might not be able to show you the way home.
Why does the Cheshire Cat sound like John Mulaney getting a prostate exam? Okay, so they fly up and the Hatter cuts through the clouds using scissors, but the animators didn't want to deal with the hassle of moving his fingers through the handles properly, so he kinda just palms them in a very noticeable way. On the other side of the cloud wall, they meet the Charmin Bear, who has gone into hiding after the toilet paper crisis of 2020. There's a brief interruption from a dormouse being used as a croquet ball, which I think is in the book.
Dormouse, here's the croquet ball. The Queen of Hearts is always whacking the poor chap out of bounds and blaming him for being a faulty ball. Isn't that so?
Oh, story of my life. Blame the dormouse. Oh well, what's a rodent to do?
The Cloud King tells them he'll be on the jury for the rabbit's trial, and Alice and Hatter go back to their journey to the castle. This is conveyed by another terrible song, which might be another metaphor if you know what I mean.
Soaring up into the sky, swooping around the world, look so far down as we fly. Do you dare to dream like me?
Afterwards, they arrive at the card castle.
It's made out of cards.
Duh. Why else would they call it Card Castle?
Well,
The Queen of Hearts is playing croquet and is a wolf, I think, and uses animals Flintstone style. Everyone clearly thinks she's a bitch, but is too afraid to say anything, including her pussy-whipped husband, who is the judge despite also being on trial for beating the Queen at cards. To keep her happy, they rig every game so she wins. Other than the wolf bit, that all checks out with what I know of the character, so no complaints here. Alice interrupts the game, but in this version of the story, the Hatter is friends with the Queen, so he's able to talk the situation down.
Why, Hatter, I didn't know you were coming.
You know me, Majesty. Here 1 minute, gone the next.
Don't tell me this wretched wicket masher is with you.
I'm not a...
Typical tourist on her first visit to Wonderland.
They go off to the courtroom where Hatter is going to represent the White Rabbit. There's a lot of back and forth nonsense that doesn't really matter. The Queen is selfish and unreasonable, making the procedure a farce. You get it.
What are we waiting for? Bring in the guilty tart-napper.
Oh, you heard the Queen.
Mr. White Rabbit Footman, you have been accused of eating the Queen's turnip and tuna tart. How do you plead? Full or empty?
Empty, as you can hear.
But in the end, it turns out that Jabberwock took the tart, not the rabbit. Naturally, the Queen decides to arrest Alice and Jabberwock. Hatter gives Alice signals to use the looking glass to grow so she can escape, but he wasn't there for that part of the movie, so that's a little worrying. The castle collapses and Alice wakes up from her dream.
Jabberwock, you're here! Oh, we're back!
There you are. So you went sneaking off for a nap, I suppose.
You mean I was dreaming?
Daydreaming is more like it. It's time for tea.
Wonderful! We can have a tea party!
Don't be ridiculous. Tea party, really?
What is this lady's problem? Aren't tea parties something classy women actually do? Am I wrong here? I thought that's why little girls did it, 'cause it was fancy. I don't know, I'm not a noblewoman from 1870. Alice questions if everything really happened, and her hallucinations tell her it doesn't matter, which is in no way a giant red flag that Alice is fucking crazy. From here, they just crib the ending from Labyrinth.
Soaring up into the sky, swooping around the world, look so far down as we fly.
The last shot is unfortunately of the Cheshire Nightmare.
Hey, so maybe next time we'll see you in Wonderland. Since all you gotta do to drop in is dream.
I honestly don't know which talk to the audience moment I hate more, this one or Little Bees. So I should talk about how this movie is utter garbage, but honestly, I don't really have much more to complain about. At the end of the day, it's Alice in Wonderland, a story specifically known for its incoherence. So what can they really do to mess it up? It's not good, like at all, but I suppose I've seen worse. My main issue other than their god-awful Cheshire Cat is that the name of the movie doesn't make sense. I was kind of thinking that with the title, What's the Matter with Hatter, that it would be about something being wrong with Hatter. In fact, I'll pitch an idea. Alice can be visiting Wonderland, right? And you don't need to fully introduce her or the characters, just assume that everyone understands the basic idea. Her friends there could then come ask her for help because the Mad Hatter is acting normal. He isn't mad anymore, he's boring and dreary. Just put aside the possible implications of glorifying mental illness. The cause could be a villain which turns out to be an evil, older version of Alice. The whole thing would be a metaphor for Alice growing up and putting away silly things, but then she can realize that growing up doesn't mean she has to give up her childhood. Sure, that's the same lesson from the Labyrinth, but they already did practically the same ending anyway, so who cares? It would actually make the film stand out a bit more too. But as it is, the movie's just bad. Not terrible, not unwatchable, just generically bad. And I consider that kind of a win for this series. Thanks for watching.